but passed it to his colleague who missed the shot, leading them to lose the game. Determined to be the best center forward. Shield, who ends up being hit, becoming the current catcher, who reacts by hitting his colleague right before the front, running from someone and a good aim when kicking and chasing someone, and catches the ball. Dodging everyone and running at an astonishing speed, he manages to score, leaving everyone after losing a decisive game that would have taken him to the national championship. Asagi, the protagonist, reflects on the loss, remembering that he had the ball heading towards the goal, but passed it to his colleague who missed the shot, leading them to lose the game. Asagi wonders if it would have been different if he himself had kicked the ball into the goal, but, regretting it, he reminds himself that soccer cannot be played alone, but requires a team. Disappointed, he cries, believing that his childhood dream, for which he has been striving all his life, of becoming a star center forward and winning the World Cup, will never come true. When he arrives home, desolate, Hope appears along with a letter of approval from a Japanese soccer union team. Arriving at the place, he finds his colleague, the one responsible for the opposing team winning the game earlier. A player with many fans and recognized for his ability and different from Asagi, he always thinks as a team. Together they enter the place and see several players present. When the person in charge appears, he explains that he has been hired with the objective of making Japan win the World Cup. He has selected 300 players to participate in an experiment that will turn one of them into the best center forward in the world. But for this they will have to say goodbye to the soccer they have known up to now, and learn to play on their own, prioritizing victory over the team. To do so, they would have to live there and undergo special high-quality training at the Blue Lock Institution. The person in charge, Ego, guarantees that whoever stays and defeats the other 299 participants will become the greatest center forward in the world. Asagi, inspired by his words, is the first to run through the door, determined to be the best center forward. Arriving at Blue Lock, he meets his roommates, Team Z. Discovering that his old roommate was also there. Both are happy to be together. They all receive a uniform with a number where it is explained that they are according to their qualifications, and that it is possible to check the ranking among the 300 players by number. Asagi despairs because he is number 299, the worst of all the players, except for one of his new colleagues, number 300. But it is also said that the qualifications may change depending on the results of training and competitions, and whoever fails to win there in Blue Lock will lose the right to play for the national team for life, and will kiss his or her playing career goodbye. Suddenly, the first test starts right then and there in the room. One of the players starts as the catcher and has to hit the ball, without using his hands, to any of his teammates, who then become the catcher, similar to a game of tag. Whoever ends up as the catcher will be disqualified and have his career ruined, and all this with a time limit of 136 seconds. The test begins with the lowest ranked player being the catcher. Desperate, he decides to go after the player with the lowest number after him, Asagi. But when two teammates get distracted talking, he manages to hit one of them. He then holds up Asagi, using him as a shield, who ends up being hit, becoming the current catcher. With only a minute left, Asagi tries with all his might to hit one of them. He decides that the best thing to do is to go after the only one below him in the qualifications. One of his colleagues, to help him, holds up one of them to be hit, but in the confusion he ends up leaving the one with the worst number unable to run, making him an easy target for Asagi. After some time reflecting, Asagi comes to the conclusion that it is not right since he had gone there to become a better player. He leaves his colleague, still incapacitated on the ground, to go after a bigger target with the goal of evolving. The player who had helped him before, agreeing with Asagi, takes the ball from him with only 10 seconds left and tries to hit someone of a higher level, Asagi's former colleague. The player kicks the ball high in Asagi's direction, who reacts by hitting his colleague right before the first test time runs out. His colleague, who had only agreed to go there for the purpose of proving that this method is wrong, in disbelief at what has just happened, is disqualified. He questions how a game of catch can define whether or not he is a good player. The test taker then explains that at the Blue Lock everything is soccer. From the format of their room being the same as a field to the time given to them being the same time that, on average, a player spends with the ball in a match. He goes on to say that a center forward has to have a high sense of perception when running from someone and a good aim when kicking and chasing someone, similar to catching. He adds that when he turned the catcher there was still a second to go and he could have hit his teammate motionless on the ground next to him. He reminds us that only a few seconds are crucial for victory, and finishes by using Asagi and the colleague who passed the ball to him as an example, saying that not only did they not give up, they also tried to hit someone above their level. He looks with hatred at Asagi, the culprit of having destroyed his career, and walks away leaving Asagi reflecting on how excited he was feeling even though he had just destroyed someone's career. Ego says that what they are feeling is the taste of victory and that there are now only 11 roommates left, the amount of players on a team, becoming Team Z. After intense training, Asagi feels like a failure among the others because he cannot reach the level of the other players. Later, the colleague who had helped him to beat the disqualified player calls him to train together. He tells him about a monster voice that he hears every time he is playing and that he felt that Asagi also has a monster inside him. Asagi gets excited, wanting to know more about what the monster inside him is like, saying that this monster gives him courage. The results of the physical fitness test come out, changing the number on their shirt. Asagi realizes that he has moved up to number 274 and is excited. It is explained to them how the division of the participants was made. Teams from B to Z divided into 5 groups per building, with Team Z being the one with the lowest rank, and the lower the rank the lower the quality of the food and the worse the quality of the training places. And to Asagi's dismay, it is also explained that in the pickup test each team lost 1 member, leaving 275 players, 11 in each team. As a result, he is still the penultimate worst in the ranking, being on the worst team with the worst training. Then comes the time for the first selection, where the 5 teams, from V to Z, in Building 5 will fight each other and only the top 2 teams will move on to the second selection. However, of the 3 teams that lose, the player who scores the most goals from each team will move on to the next stage along with the 2 winning teams. In other words, only 2 teams and 3 other players will go to the next stage. They will also have to create a new way of playing soccer, since everyone there is a striker. There are 2 ways to get to the next stage, and it is up to them to decide whether they will choose the individual way, by scoring more goals, or prioritize the team. They enter the field to play against the opposing team of the moment, Team X. But as soon as the game starts, everything turns into chaos, with everyone fighting among themselves to get the ball, thanks to the rule that whoever scores more goals in the team, will pass the first stage even if they are on one of the losing teams. Asagi observes the confusion. All of a sudden, one of the opposing team's players appears, takes the ball, skillfully overtakes everyone, and scores the first goal of the game, leaving everyone on Team Z slack-jawed and completely unstructured. They still do not respect their positions, thinking individually, unlike Team X, which begins to organize itself as a team by scoring 1 more goal. Asagi realizes that if they don't get organized soon, they will lose. Even though he understands the situation, he cannot think of a way out since his team, unlike the opposing team, is not prepared. Team X continues to score 1 goal after another. When it was already 5-0 to the opposing team, with only 3 minutes left in the game, Asagi and his colleague decide, together, to try to score a goal. The opposing player tries to intimidate Asagi, who is held back for a while, and, as if by a feeling, he, without thinking, touches the ball to one of his colleagues who scores their first goal before the end of the game, causing them to lose 5-1. They are devastated. The team thinks about what to do to win the next game when Ego advises them that what they need to figure out is each individual's weapon and that this is the only way they will make it through the first selection. After each has defined their individual weapons, they devise a way to get in sync so that each can use his individuality. Asagi is the only one who has not decided what his strength is and feels increasingly discouraged. They enter the field to fight against Team Y, the opponent of the day. Team Y, just like them, also lost the first game, making both teams give it their all, since the chances of them getting past the first team if they lose again were very low. They soon realized that Team Y had mounted a better strategy than them, mounting a great defense waiting for the right moment to counterattack, scoring a goal. After the break, they finally managed to get the ball after much effort. Asagi shoots at the goal, but ends up shooting too high. One of his teammates tries to fix the position of the ball, but unfortunately cannot. Asagi, who had been trying all game to understand the opposing team's play, begins to feel a strange presence. When he discovers that the presence was coming from one of the players from Team Y, he finally understands their plan. He runs to try to stop and get the ball. But even if he succeeds, he again misses the kick. The same teammate tries to fix the position of the ball, but this time succeeds, scoring a goal to tie the game. Asagi realizes that one of the players on Team Y is just like him. He has the same strategies and ways of playing. He and Asagi challenge each other face to face. With the game tied, the 2 teams fight to win the game, each time increasing Asagi's rivalry with the player from Team Y and realizing that they are more alike than they thought. With only 1 minute left in the game, Team Y decides to use the card up their sleeve. They, who until then were playing more defensively, started to attack using the whole team at once, leaving Asagi's team in despair since they had put almost the whole group in the attack, leaving almost no one to defend. Due to the situation, Asagi's gaze changes. The opponent runs to score the goal, when Asagi appears, taking the ball, explaining that, since the player from Team Y was using the same strategy as him, the play was predictable. Asagi, realizing that he would have to change this strategy, since he saw that it could go wrong, decides to score the winning goal himself. Everyone on Team Z is celebrating their victory when Asagi walks toward the losing team who are crying over their defeat. He reflects on how he had just destroyed the dreams of 11 people and finds it strange to enjoy the feeling. Asagi, unable to sleep, decides to go watch the recording of the game and meets one of his colleagues. His colleague tells him that Asagi has a special weapon, high spatial intelligence. Asagi, unlike most players, sees beyond his own field of vision, being able to see the entire field as if he were looking down from above, and for now he does this unconsciously, but if he transforms this ability consciously, he will become unequaled. He says that like Asagi, he had an incredible ability, but he had an accident that injured his knee, and after that he never had the courage to use his ability again, because if he suffered an injury in the same place he would not be able to play again. And he confesses that the reason he went to Blue Lock was to find a reason to give up on becoming the best center forward in the world. Asagi reflects on how to use his spatial intelligence weapon to help his team when they are updated of the team's score so far, and also update the ranking based on the results and moves within the teams, leading Asagi to the top of the ranking thanks to his goal in the last game. Ego also gives them some advice, saying that to win now it is no longer enough to know your weapons, but you need to find a way to polish them to make your skills shine. After pondering how to polish his weapon, which only appears instinctively, Asagi decides to train to improve his physique. Everyone in Team Z, taking inspiration from him, begins to train together, running after Asagi. After they analyze Team W, the game begins. During the game, we discover the background of the player from Team Z, who suffered the accident. He was from the Two Brothers team, the opposing team, and the fastest player on the team. However, after he fell with his speed and ruptured his ligament, he never ran again as before. The Two Brothers make fun of him by bullying him to win the game. Asagi gets the ball back, and his teammate, the coach, scores 3 goals in a row before the first half is even over. Team Z celebrates, thinking they've already won the game. However, in the second half, everything changed. The player, who until then had scored all 3 of the team's goals, begins to lose the ball and miss goals, leaving the team confused as to how someone who was doing so well was suddenly distracted. After they concede 2 goals, he apologizes for having faltered with the team, but when he gets up Asagi has the sensation of seeing him smile, which is strange for someone who was losing. Asagi realizes that Team W has noticed their move, which was quite difficult to spot so quickly. He begins to suspect that his teammate had betrayed them, and the betrayal is confirmed. His colleague, not believing that his team would be able to win the first selection, decides to pass the selection alone, since the player who scored the most goals from the losing team would still pass. He then decided to make a deal with the opposing team. He had handed over all the strategies and skills of each team and would let the other team win. In exchange, he would score 3 goals, the most goals ever scored by a team. With the betrayal discovered, the game becomes 12 against 10 players, leaving Team Z at a complete disadvantage. Not only were they with fewer players now, but they had all their strategies exposed and still had very little time to turn the game around. However, Asagi and his team continue to fight persistently to win. They decide that the only solution in their state is to score only 1 goal to tie the game, giving them a chance to move on to the next stage. However, despite their efforts, they are still at a disadvantage, as they were outnumbered and with one of the players still feeling trapped by the trauma of the accident. But already in overtime, with only 3 minutes left, his colleague notices Asagi, who is still fighting with fire in his eyes, noticing that he has the same eyes he had before his accident, and, with this, he gains the strength to free himself from the chains. At this moment, Asagi, with his spatial intelligence, can sense his colleague coming at full speed. He kicks the ball into an empty area, making everyone startled. But with his colleague's high speed, as predicted by Asagi, he arrives before the others and catches the ball. Dodging everyone and running at an astonishing speed, he manages to score, leaving everyone speechless. And so the game draws to a close. The player from Team Z, after betraying his team and his plan to make them lose fail, tries to make the same deal with the next and last team they would play, Team V. However, unlike the other team, they deny his proposal, claiming that it is not worth their while to win this way. They begin to prepare to fight the last team by analyzing the table and its points, coming to the conclusion that the only way for them to advance is to win this game against Team V, which, until then, had not lost any games, otherwise they will never be able to play again in their lives. However, they still have to play with 1 less number, thanks to the betrayal of their colleague. Ego, appearing to give them the new instructions, explains that Team Z has won so far with luck, intuition, and, in the case of one of them, weaponry. He explains that if they really want to become professional players they have to stop winning this way and understand how their weapon works in order to reproduce the formula by no longer relying on coincidence. With 24 hours to go in the game, Isagi, after struggling to find a way to use his weapon consciously, is still at square one, having to discover his formula in the middle of the game, something very risky in the situation his team is in. And so, game time comes and they go out to play with the V team. The game finally begins and everyone runs with their plans. Team V makes their move as predicted by Team Z, who have studied the players in advance, preventing them from making their move. With their plan working, they proceed to counterattack as they had agreed, but the ball hits the post. In just a few seconds, Team V understands the plan they used against them by using the same plan on Team Z, scoring a goal so quickly and easily that it leaves everyone on Team Z stunned. Isagi, afraid of the opposing player, tries to understand how he managed to score so quickly and so accurately. They try hard to fight, but they get another goal from the same guy from Team V. They then decide to use their speedy player, but they discover that the other opposing team has a player even faster than theirs. Everyone on Isagi's team is discouraged, and just when they think they have no hope left, they realize that one of them, the player with the monster inside him, is getting more and more excited about the game. He sets up a new tactic, since the old weapons and formulas were not working. He explains that they will have to overcome their limits, and this challenge motivates him to continue with the monster inside him, saying that in a desperate situation he should not feel fear, but extreme excitement. He manages to run with the ball past everyone on the opposing team and scores their first goal, cheering up the entire Z team. Isagi realizes that he is right and everyone goes along with the new improvised plan. One of the players challenges himself to kick the ball a distance he is not used to, scoring another goal for Team Z. After they prepare at halftime, the game returns and Team Z continues with their strategy when they realize that Team V has increased their defense. Isagi remains lost, not knowing how to evolve in such a short time. Meanwhile, Ego, who is watching the game, explains the objective of that game, to bring an extreme situation to awaken the players, so that they understand and put together the accumulated experiences, creating something new, similar to putting together a puzzle. Team Z tries to stop the opposing team by separating one of the players from his partner, who is the team's real weapon, but gets nowhere without his instructions. The fast players face each other again, with a growing rivalry between them. The player from Team Z tries to find a formula to use his weapon in full to get past the other guy who proved to be more efficient than him. With 30 minutes left in the match, he manages to get past his opponent, improving himself as a player and scoring another goal. Finally, they leave Team V, who have never experienced anything like this before, afraid of losing. One of the players on the opposing team feels trapped and completely dominated by Team Z. His partner, realizing his friend's despair, starts to play on his own for the first time, without needing to receive instructions. Inspired, he uses all his skill, making it impossible to stop him. With only 15 minutes left, Isagi's team, in desperation, comes to the conclusion that they must attack with everything. After many attempts, Isagi's team finally manages to tie the game. He reflects on how it all happened by starting to put his pieces together, understanding how to use his eyes that can see into the future of the field. Isagi calculates in which position he should stay, but the other player, being unpredictable, manages to slip past him. So their loss was already expected. Everyone despairs, preparing for the worst. When the player, who had betrayed Team Z, surprises everyone by grabbing the opposing player, getting a red card, and giving the team another chance to win. Now, with the red card lowering his points, if the team lost, he would be disqualified along with his teammates. Outside the game, he looks at his team fighting for victory and remembers how it was before Blue Lock, with his old team, which, unlike now, didn't strive to win by settling for anything. He realizes that before him was the team he always wanted to find. With only 3 minutes left, everyone struggles to beat the other team. The ball is with Isagi, who takes it, determined. He manages to calculate where he will score the goal when suddenly his opponent comes up behind him, surrounding him. Isagi, unable to sense one more victory for his team, is stuck wondering what he should do, pass the ball or score himself, when he decides he has to win with his own goal, getting the missing piece to fully awaken his weapon. He makes a shot so precise that the ball goes straight into the goal in a fast fashion, which passes through everyone, leaving even the goalkeeper unable to defend. With that goal, his whole team celebrates the victory while Team V suffers the feeling of losing for the first time. After a well-thrown punch, the team traitor is forgiven and the final result of the first selection is presented. Team V in first place and Team Z in second. With 3 more players from each team that scored the most goals. Totaling 25 players remaining in Building 5, the losing players pass by crying, after all they have just lost their entire careers. After days of training for the second selection, the moment finally arrives. Everyone prepares to face people of higher rank. Isagi is excited to test his skills. However, when he gets there, He is surprised to find other groups from Team W and Y. It is soon revealed that there were no other buildings, only the one they were in, and that the groups were not divided based on their abilities. This was just a way for them to believe they were weak and wish to improve. So the explanations for the second stage begin. In a state-of-the-art training camp, the second selection consists of 5 stages, and only those who make it through one stage can advance to the next, and those who pass the second stage will participate in training with some of the best players in the world. But unlike the old selection, this one will be individual, leaving only the truly capable players. The season ends with Asagi walking through the door to the next stage, grateful for all that Team Z has done for him, but happy to go his own way from now on. Did you like this anime? Let me know what you think in the comments. Guys, I ask you to please subscribe to this channel, especially if you like this work. Help me grow here, folks. We are still small and unable to compete with the big boys, so I really need your support here, with your subscription and your feedback. See you in the next video. Bye.